Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Black Eye Podcast. I am your host, Michelle, and this is just an impromptu live that I wanted to make early on a Sunday morning, on a cloudy Sunday morning, September 28th, 2025. And, you know, there have been some things on my mind that I wanted to share. Last year, I tried to talk about some of these things and I had some community guidelines. So I had to really be careful about what I say and how I say it. And, I can't come over here and rage and be angry and be outraged. I have to come over here very quiet and sedate and speak to you all, uh, hopefully from a place that makes a great deal of sense. So lately, I've been noticing the pattern. Actually, it's been a little longer than lately. I actually did a video on this last year where, as black folks were really talking about racism in the peripheral, there were people who were making laws or debunking studies that had consistently been quoted when talking about systemic racism. There had been court fights, the Fearless Fund, for instance. A group of black women founded venture capital, providing monies for people, black folks, mainly women, and businesses. And these venture capitalists were so successful that banks, international banks, agreed to partner with them to aid black women in business. Well, a man named Edward Blum, whom I believe is tied to the White House, uh, got together with a bunch of other white people and decided to sue Fearless Fund. You might have heard of this. This was on the only news program that it was on was the CBS News or in the morning. It wasn't on national news. It wasn't anywhere. It was on CBS Morning News. And they got together and they decided to sue any nonprofit organization, black women or white women, who funded black owned businesses. In one case, uh, it was a very small amount given by a group of white people. And then on the Fearless Fund end, they had to go to court twice. They had to appear in court twice. Once they run their case, and the second time they lost their case. Excuse me. And as a result of them losing their case, uh, there had been a flurry of systemic breakdowns and teardowns, mostly of black women, but of the black community in general. It had to be black women. It had to be black women. It had to be black women because black women have historically raised the community awareness. I mean, come on. A black woman, a series of black women founded the NAACP. They founded some of these foundations that we stand on today. And I noticed, actually, I noticed this before, even about 2023, that there was really just this small little takedown, this silencing of the black women, of women in general, but black women in particular. And they were just, it was just a quiet takedown, very quiet. It wasn't public. It wasn't, it wasn't broadcast. It was very insidious. And I noticed that black content creators, especially women, had to change their content. They could no longer be strong black women on these platforms. There were only very few places they could be such women or express themselves in the way that they could. I noticed this on YouTube. And excuse me, anything that had to do with race that was quietly being how do you say dethroned or deactivated, or their reach was limited, they were being limited, and so on and so forth. And it came into fruition in 2025. Now, I don't have a problem with religion necessarily. We have freedom of religion. I don't have a problem with traditional homes. I'm a feminist. Let me just put that out there. I am a feminist. I was not necessarily born a feminist. I am a feminist. I believe in women's rights to choose their own life. I believe in the woman's right to choose, and I believe in women's life. The woman's life, because her life matters. But a lot of us out here on the fringes were being sidelined and suppressed and oppressed. And a lot of our content was being, you know, uh, you know, uh, what is the word I'm trying to find here? Because it's in the morning. A lot of our content was being sidelined. It wasn't getting the attention, and maybe it wasn't going to get the attention because again, maybe it's fringe. I don't know, but it was a lot of content that was not being heavily uh, promoted. It wasn't being promoted, but there's certain type of content that was being promoted. I noticed that, babies all over the place was being promoted. Trad wife content was being promoted. And this is long before we actually read the Project 2025. Uh, we didn't even read that yet. But this was back in 2023 that these things were happening. Trad wives, homemakers, all of these content regarding women were being promoted over how women were feeling, how women or feminist content. I want to say, even though a great deal of you women out there who are feminists by the fact that you exist deny feminism. But anyhow, anywho, there was a systemic move to silence women, a systemic move to really silence Black women in particular, Black folks in particular. But I noticed something also that was very interesting, and I noticed this a while back. Whenever they wanted to do something, and I call it the infamous they, we don't know who they are. I think they would exist this no matter who was in office. If Kamala was in office or if Donald Trump was in office, I think we could all agree that Chris, what's his name, Promo, did an excellent job of telling us, they all work for the same people. There is no them and there is no us. It's all the same. They all work for the same people. So the infamous day, the infamous day had had now I just lost my train of thought. Had an idea and a thought. Oh, I hate when I lose my train of thought. But anyway, the infamous day, he did a good idea of showing that it doesn't matter who's in office. They were making these moves. They were making these moves to strip women of their rights. I mean, there were little signs, and it put me in mind of the show. It's not the show. What is it? The Handmaid's Tale. It's not the show, but it put me in mind of the show because the first season, if you recall, in the show, there were subtle things that were happening in the peripheral. They were fighting about life and they were talking about their little lives and romances and the husband and the wife and work and there are little things happening in the peripheral and men are getting a little bit bolder and they're getting a little bit nastier and it's just these little things that are happening. And I noticed similar little disturbing stories that were happening in the peripheral long before y'all started reading Project 2025, which, by the way, had been printed for 40 years. But anywho, I'm sitting here talking and what was I saying? Yeah, so little things were happening, little laws were being made, and these were under Biden, by the way. These were under Biden. These were Biden under, the umbrella of the Democratic Party, the so-called progressives. All these little odd laws were being made. All these little odd things were being said. There was an increased violence toward women under that administration, and it was culminating. It's going to culminate under whomever was in office, and it's still going to culminate to whomever is in office. And so I noticed that racism was the great distraction. I know I go through all of this to say that racism was the great distraction because whenever they wanted to do something, there would be some kind of rage bait in which black folks would come out of their asses and behave hostilely toward the white folks. And I kept saying to myself, and I said to other people, and I say to you today, that this is something that y'all should ignore. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense because it's all together. I know it sounds so convoluted because they want you to believe that it's convoluted, but it really is all put together. The dismantling of laws and rules and studies that prove systemic racism, the dismantling or the kicking of the bear, so to speak, of women's rights. All of these things are happening in the peripheral while we are distracted with all the noise. And the noise is racism. They mean to rage bait you so that you look poorly on camera. Why is there always a camera around when they're doing something disrespectful? They want you to be caught. They want you to react the way you do. They want you. It's the same thing. They were trying to do it with women a little bit, and women have been like quietly doing the fight, black women. But the whole idea is that this is all a trap. Remember, in the first administration, Trump's first administration, he funded HBCUs. Y'all forget that, right? He gave money to HBCUs. Well, the people around him, they don't want to fund HBCUs because they don't like you. So what do? They want to go to campuses and talk to you. But you guys, and I know y'all gonna think that I'm sitting here being a cuck or something, or what my daughter call a bootlicker. She doesn't call me that. She just calls certain people that a bootlicker. I'm telling you that you have to be very careful because what they're doing is trapping you and causing you to act out in a way that is negative toward you. They want reasons to defund you. They want reasons to take your housing, to take your food, they take your education. They need a reason to do it. And how else do they do it? By rage baiting it. And this is when, like in that college situation, y'all just totally messed that up. Because now what did you prove? You proved that you're animals, because that's what they all say. You know, that's what they say in the comments. I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to do this. They galvanize. That's not the word I'm looking for, but they get people to respond to this idea that they are doing good and you are doing badly. Now, I want you to pay attention to something. You know, Charlie Kirk you know, he went to places where there was a hostile environment. He did, obviously, right? And he was able to debate these white kids, right? And he debated all kind of kids. He debated them. They had talk, you know, was civil. They never went toward violence on him or threw anything at him or caused him any harm other than, unfortunately, this new guy, this kid here, which was an outside force, not an inside force of the campus. But flip the script. And this is what they want you to pay attention to. You know, this is why Charlie Kirk is being elevated, because see, he could go and they show all these kids in all these colleges, and yes, there were black kids there and all kids of all races, et cetera, who did not agree with Charlie Kirk, who pushed back at things that he said, who dismantled his arguments, who you know, they were intelligent, they were smart, they had the mental fortitude to push back on him and dismantle his arguments and take him down a peg. No violence, but they sat up in a HBCU and they knew that you were all going to resort to violence in the first place. They knew that. And you did. Y'all always perform when you shouldn't perform. You threw stuff at them. They had to leave. Y'all were disrespectful. And you're going to sit here and say, well, they are racist. You're not standing up to racist. You're falling into a trap. You're falling into a trap. You're not standing up to nothing. You're not doing anything. Those people are the people who fund your HBCU. And y'all need to understand that you're the 14% of the population. You're not the richest one. Asians at 6% or 6.8% or 7%, let's just say 7% of the population are the richest demographic. Black folk are not the richest demographic. Black folk can't single handedly fund these HBCUs. Y'all need the government to do that. And see, they're looking for reasons not to fund you, not to give you anything, not to. Because they look at you and they say, look at them. They're animals. They're animals. And unfortunately, y'all give into that all the time. Wisdom is greater than power. Having wisdom. You can have a discussion with those guys. You can have a discussion with those men. Or you could have just ignored them. But instead of chasing them out, pretending that you got power over them, thinking that you won the battle, you ain't win shit. There are many times that I look at black folks and y'all think that y'all won because you hit a woman. Remember that time when they had the fight at was it a dock or something? And the black man hit the white woman over the head and all the black folks were celebrating because y'all thought you had a win. You don't have a win. Y'all got to stop with this violence. You got to stop with this anger because all it is a place that they keep kicking and you keep reacting to. You think that you have power. We have power. You don't have any power. You don't have any authority. You're not fighting them. You don't have the economic strength to fight them. You don't have the economic power to fight them. Anyways, nobody's watching, so I'm probably going to close this down really slow. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I know y'all probably don't like to hear this, and you think that people who talk down to black folks are evil, and they always say negative things about black folks because black folks always fall into the trap. You always fall into the trap. You climb up the stairs. We see you ascending, you're ascending, and you keep tripping on the same damn step. You never stop. You never stop. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. And the young people, y'all think y'all winning. And it takes just a little bit of sense to realize that you're not winning nothing. What is the saying? Play stupid games, get stupid prizes. The prizes get stupider and stupider every time. Who do you think is funding those HBCUs? You think you got that money to do? I don't see Obama writing checks for your HBCU. I don't see Jordan writing checks for all these billionaires. Where's the check Oprah's writing for your HBCU? They're not writing them checks. Not that they're going to single-handedly fund that stuff anyway. You are a publicly funded school. There's a lot that I want to say, but since nobody has come over to my live and nobody knows that I'm live yet, and I may not keep this live up for very long, I want to move on into the other part of my discussion, which was preparedness. Now, anybody who has pattern recognition, you ain't got to be a prophet to see that there are some things that are about to pop off in this world, in this country, all over. There's going to be some serious stuff going on where as far as power is concerned. Y'all need to start getting ready. Y'all need to turn your attention to preparedness. And I'm not talking about this because I want y'all to be afraid. I'm talking about this because you need to be aware. That's why I say this racism thing, this is a trap. This is meant to distract you from the real code, from seeing what's really happening in the world. And it's about to topple. I don't know if the United States is going to topple. And I'm not saying that governments are going to topple, but I'm saying this, that the world, that things are about to change in the most drastic way you could ever see. I tried to talk about it last year, and I said it was a storm coming. And I remember somebody in my comments say, "You don't. We ain't talking about no storm. We need to go out there and vote." And I laughed because it's like if voting would stop the storm, then the storm would be stopped depending on who you voted for. But this is not going to stop the storm. This is happening despite Kamala. If she were in office, it was going to happen under her. It's going to happen under Donald Trump. It's going to happen. There's going to be power grids. There're going to be there are cells here. I don't know what to tell y'all. I really don't know what to tell you, but I'm telling you this. Y'all need to be prepared for disasters. How about that? Natural disasters are going to happen. How about that? Let me not go down any holes. Let me just talk about the natural disasters. There are already too many of them. There are already things breaking down. There are already grids that are overloaded, that are not upgraded. There are already, all it takes is one good storm to send us all down the hill in a handbasket, knock out our power, knock out our cell phones. And y'all need to be prepared, really, truly, honestly prepared with sustainable goods and, rice and canned goods and big power back batteries, batteries that can sustain your refrigerator, solar powered battery systems, like they are like generators, solar powered battery generators. That's what I want to say. Um, Solar powered battery generators so that you can have light, so that if you need to go, you don't need to go outside. Should it be too dangerous for you to be outside? You need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to be aware of those peripheral stories in the news, those little blurbs that pop up that nobody ever pays attention to. You need to be aware of what is really going on, because believe me, it's not in the race issue. Donald Trump is not really your problem. You think he is. They want you to think he is, but he's not your problem. They want you to think that it's all this other stuff because it's a sleight of hand. While you busy looking at this stuff, other stuff is happening, and it's not. That's what I know. I went a whole long way. I wanted to explain because in YouTube you have to tell stories, and I'm sorry that these are a boring. This is a boring story, and this is not exciting and fantastic. And my face isn't on here, and I'm not making food and doing interesting things. But the truth of the matter is, the truth is not an interesting thing. It's not interesting. And I think a lot of y'all are woefully unprepared for what is about to come. You're unprepared. You're unprepared. You know, that's all I can tell you. That's all I can say to you. Like, I wish, I wish, I wish that, I wish that you really understood. I wish that you understood me. I wish I was a better communicator on this part. I know that there's a lot that I can't say. There are a lot of things that people are saying, but they're not really saying it. They're kind of beating around the bush. And I guess you have to because, community guidelines and stuff. And I don't want to instill fear. This is not about being afraid. Like, when you go out when you get the weather report, right? And you know it's going to rain. Oh my goodness, excuse me. You bring an umbrella. But there are things that are about to take place that y'all never seen before, that never happened, historical, completely like historical disasters. And I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. You got to be prepared. Get sustainable food, get batteries, get supply kits, you know, get what you can afford. Like they have little batteries on Amazon. Go look at my link in my description. Little batteries, you charge them up by solar, or you can plug them in. They'll be plugged up. They can keep your cell phone charged. They can keep your laptop charged. $100 and something dollars. Tax time, God help you if you get your income tax. You got to start thinking about these things. And maybe this is what some of the things I'm going to start talking about more about survival and about what's really going on, because nobody's really talking about that. They're talking about all this other stuff. It's sleight of hand. These traps that y'all are falling into. Everybody's falling into them. I caught myself almost get angry and falling into. And this Charlie Kirk thing, trap. Y'all didn't even have to. Let me not go there. Let me not go there because y'all didn't really have to say nothing about that. Y'all didn't have to say nothing about that. But let me be quiet about that. Anyhow, if you have been with me any time at all and you have listened to this video or you listen to this video on the playback, I thank you and I appreciate you. And I'll try to come back and I'll make another appearance and I'll be on camera and I'll look good and it'll be a sunny day and I'll be in my golden, the best light possible and I'll be looking fabulous and then we can have a face to face talk. But right now, I just wanted to get this out. It'll stay up for a while and you'll probably click off because it's not something that's exciting or entertaining. It's really kind of just thought provoking and a stream of consciousness and observations and you know. I'm wearing tin hats too. We're all wearing tin hats today, but you know. Anyhow, thank you for sharing this time with me, whether currently or in the playback. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I've been working on some content and hopefully October that'll be coming up soon. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, have a good Sunday too. Bye.